Good morning. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Happy Wellness Wednesday. I am running a teeny bit late this morning, just a few minutes. I'm sorry about that. A little bit of technical difficulty this morning. Also still feeling not quite 100%. So it means I'm moving a little slower today. And okay, there's my extra lighting. If you don't know me and you're just stumbling on my page, my name is Donna. I am a mom, a nana, a wellness advocate. I am currently enrolling in grad school. The applications are making me a little bit nuts. Just a lot of things going on right now. I'm an activewear fanatic. And if you're just stumbling on my page, Wellness Wednesday is something I started every Wednesday morning, usually about 7:15. I'm running a little bit late this morning. Where it's an opportunity where we can discuss a lot of topics under wellness because it's a very broad subject. It's a great place for sharing ideas because some things that work for some people don't work for others. And you can't ever know all the ideas if we don't have a forum to share them, right? So what we do is we do this once a week. A lot of times it's mindset work because that has a lot to do with wellness. So a lot of times it's mindset work. And we join each other here, talk a little bit about whatever the topic of the day is. Today, it is not mindset work. Today, it is safety related because, like I said, wellness is a broad topic. And it can be body, it can be brain, it can be nutrition, exercise. You pick it. There's a lot of things that fall under the topic of wellness, right? Good morning, Laura. Nice to see you. So we're going to get started. Today is the first day of summer. So happy summer. I guess this summer solstice, here in Florida, it currently looks like it's the first day of the rainy season, which is probably not untrue. But the first day of summer brings a lot of things to mind, especially as I'm doing my personal trainer certification study. There was a section in there where they were talking about heat indexes. So it got me thinking, and I had already done something about reflective activewear a week or so ago on a separate platform that had nothing to do with Wellness Wednesday. So my brain kind of started to put all these together, and it seemed like now is a really great time to talk about ways to stay safe where you can still get outside in the summer. Y'all, please excuse me. Like I said, still not 100%. So if there's some yucky coughing during this, I apologize. Anyway, so ways to stay safe in the summer where you can still enjoy summer fun and be outside, and just do it a little bit better, okay, to keep you safe. So first we want to talk about hydration. Hydration is extremely important. It is important to your whole body and it has direct impacts on your brain, if you are not properly hydrated. Dehydration there's actually two problems that you can kind of run into. There's actually a lot more than that, but we're going to start with these two. Two problems that you can run into in terms of hydration in the summertime. Dehydration, as you know, is caused by not drinking enough, or by losing more fluid than you're taking in, basically. And in the summer, especially in Florida, that is not hard to do. Sometimes you can just stand outside, and if you breathe heavy, you're sweating, right? And the weather has been weird, y'all. The weather has been weird everywhere. So we have no idea what it's going to look like for everybody else, not just Florida this summer. But there's definitely been some weird weather. So, obviously the dehydration, fluid is lost through sweat, tears, vomiting, urine, or diarrhea if you've been sick in that way. The severity of dehydration can depend on a number of factors such as climate, level of physical activity, and diet. So that's dehydration. Good morning, Miss Erica. And dehydration is probably the thing that is most focused on in the news media as far as health and safety in the summertime. There's also another thing, and I may have to play it for you because I always struggle to pronounce it. Sorry. Good morning, Miss Carla. I always struggle to pronounce it. So I always have to look it up. I don't know if you can hear this. Let me see if I can turn my volume on my computer up all the way. because I just listened to it like 10 minutes ago, and already I'm like, I don't remember how to say it. I always struggle with this one. So it's called
hyponatremia.
Hyponatremia. I don't know if you heard that, but at least I can say it properly now. Hyponatremia, which is actually a situation where you are taking in too much water and not enough electrolytes. So it's different than heat dehydration. It actually upsets the saline balance in your system, and it can cause problems that actually look quite a bit like heat stroke or heat exhaustion or dehydration. But there are some different symptoms as well. So, in terms of hydration, what's the right way to do it, right? Should we be drinking electrolyte drinks every day, all day? Absolutely not. The general school of thought is that the way to avoid See? I just did it and I can't say it again. So let's try it again. It is
hyponatremia.
Hyponatremia. So the way to avoid hyponatremia while also avoiding dehydration is this. There are some schools of thought that say that 8 glasses of water are not enough per day. Okay, so in the interest of avoiding dehydration, you want a minimum of 8 glasses of water per day. There's actually a formula where you can figure it out. But what I shoot for and what I tell my VIP group when we're running challenges is, whether we're sweating or not, to do half your weight in ounces of water per day. Usually not to exceed a gallon. There's also different schools of thought on that as well. Hey, Miss Susie. But generally speaking, a good way to stay hydrated is to be drinking half your weight in ounces of water per day, not to exceed, good morning, Miss Ann, not to exceed 1 gallon. So that's basic dehydration facts. Now, when do you add electrolytes? Because you don't want hyponatremia. I think I said it right without having to consult the robot again. You don't want that to occur either if you're drinking too much water, and it can happen where you're drinking too much water, you're losing a lot of sweat. This is probably most commonly happens in people that work outdoors all the time, or people that are running marathons, ultra marathons, although it shouldn't happen because they actually know about this stuff. So what you're doing is you're losing electrolytes, you're losing salt, magnesium, all those important things. And if you're drinking too much water while you're sweating and exercising outside and not replacing those other things, that can be dangerous as well. So the school of thought is that if you are going to be high intensity activity that occurs for more than an hour, or any time when heavy sweating occurs, such as in hot temperatures, that you go ahead and consider electrolyte replacement. Now, there's a lot of ways you can do this. There's the Powerades, the Gatorades, the other brands. I don't want to be brand specific. And you can rotate those in with your water. Should you be drinking the electrolyte drinks all the time, all day long? No, it's not necessary. Make sure maybe especially if you're usually on a low salt diet, make sure in the summertime, if you're outside sweating a lot, then maybe you're taking in a little more salt than you normally would. I'm personally salt sensitive, so I struggle a little bit with that. But I'm also, these days, since I'm not training for half marathons, and I'm usually not out longer than 45 minutes in the Florida summer heat. So the important thing is to make sure that you are not sucking in too much water and not considering replacing those electrolytes. So how do you tell if you're not dehydrated? Your urine should be a pale yellow, like straw color, almost clear, but not quite. And the best way to stay hydrated is to hydrate all the time, not just when you're hot or exercising, right? So if you stay hydrated all the time, then you really don't have to worry about dehydration nearly as much. It is still something to be cognizant of if you're outside in the Florida in the summer heat, wherever you are. Like I said, we don't know what to expect this summer. So very, very important. Stay hydrated all of the time. And make sure that if you are sweating profusely for more than 45 minutes, that you go ahead and replace some of that with electrolyte fluids instead of just plain water. Okay, so that was a little bit of a struggle this morning. All right, so let's talk about heat index. What is the heat index? Most of you know. Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes it's just a word we hear on the news and we're like, okay, the heat index is really high. Ew. I know that's how I used to be. So the index or the heat index is when you hear us say it's not the heat, it's the humidity. That's pretty much essentially exactly, excuse me guys, sorry, exactly what they're referring to. It is what the temperature feels like to our skin in the event that there is high heat and high humidity, okay? So basically where I'm going with this, I'm going to keep this section of it really short because it kind of talks about, leads me to where I'm going to go next, is the higher the relative humidity, the higher the feels like temperature is. So this is why they stress the heat index so much. And it's important to pay attention to in the hot summer, no matter where you are. I'm using Florida as an example because that's where I live. If we have 100% humidity, which frequently when I look at our weather station here at the house, it says 99% this time of year. So that's a lot of humidity. That is high humidity. That is gross. Ew. When you compare that, for example, I'm looking at a chart here, and I'm happy to share the link in the comments if you want, but I'm looking at a chart here that is from weather.gov that is just a basic layman's terms heat index chart, all right? So if it's 80 degrees and we have 100% humidity, that means it feels like it's 87 outside. So basically that's adding 7 degrees of heat to the air that is touching our body. If it's 82 degrees and it's 100% humidity, it is now feels like 95. They have a yellow zone, an orange zone, and a red zone. And when you're into the darker orange and red zones, you are at a very, very high risk of heat stroke. So in Florida, basically, if the heat index is up over 100, which means 87 degrees feels, or 80 degrees feels like 87 because we've got 100% humidity. I'm not sure if I just said that right. I am not going to go out and run once the sun comes up. It's just not going to happen. Which means I am going, sorry guys, which means I am going to be, we're not going to cough anymore, right? Which means I am going to be out there before it gets light out or as it's getting light out, before the sun has come all the way up to get my run in because I don't want that added heat of the temperature rising as the sun comes up or the sun beating on my head when it is already brutally warm outside. So that leads me to the next thing, which is clothing and visibility. That's why I wanted to talk about heat index to give, anybody that doesn't know a little bit of a better understanding of heat index. That was very, very basic. There's a lot more that's difficult for me to explain. But bottom line is when it's 80 degrees in Florida and the humidity is 100%, it's going to feel like 87. And I can promise you that you don't want to be running or exercising or anything like that, especially if you're not properly conditioned for it, anytime up over where it's feeling like 90 degrees. Okay, so like I said, at that stage of the game, I am going to be getting out there earlier. Before the sun comes up, some people get out there in the evening, way after the sun has gone down. So that brings me to clothing and visibility. And I apologize, guys, but I didn't want to not show up. So just trust that if I'm ever really, really sick, I'll put up a replay of something I've done before. But here we go. Okay, so the reason I wanted to talk about heat index is because I wanted to talk about clothing and visibility. This is a huge issue for me. I grew up in the day where it was emphasized by everybody that you talked to that if you were going to be out at dark or after dark, you needed to be wearing light colored clothes so that people could see you. That is not happening anymore, y'all. It is just not happening. I can't tell you how many times that I have been driving down the road and been thankful that I am good at catching movement out of the corner of my eye because color would not have saved that person's life. However, whether they were riding a bike, walking, whatever, these people, nobody's paying attention to that rule anymore. They're out there in dark colored clothes, And it's very, very hard to see them, and it's very, very frustrating. So let's talk about clothing and visibility. When the heat index comes up, people are going to be out there walking their dogs, riding their bikes, running, whatever. They're going to be out there after the sun goes down, before the sun comes up. And yes, even if they're out there walking their dogs, and you guys know why they do that, right? So this isn't just about people, because the pavement soaks up the heat all day and sometimes can stay so hot that it could burn a dog's paws for a couple of hours after the sun goes down, because it's been soaking up that heat all day and it's literally radiating that heat back out. So people have to walk their dogs later in the evenings too, if they want to take them out because of their poor little paws and they don't want them to burn, right? So same idea. There's going to be people out there walking their dogs. They're going to be out there running. They're going to be out there bicycling. If it's been really brutally hot, there may even be kids that are still out playing in their front yards after dark, because that's the only time they can do it. So light, colors, and breathability. Light colors are crucial. Whether you're out in the sun or out after the sun goes down. Light colors, especially whites and the neon yellows, what we call safety yellow or safety green, tend to soak up any ambient light that's in the area, which means ambient light being, light from the person's front porch down the street from you, the street light, the lights from the street lights on the main road, whatever. The whites and the light colors tend to soak up that ambient light, especially the safety yellows and safety greens, and help kind of reflect that back out, which makes you easier to spot. In fact, that safety yellow color, highlighter yellow, whatever you want to call it, is one of the best colors for day and nighttime visibility, even maybe more so than white. White is the second choice or an equivalent choice. Breathability. What I mean by that, and I don't know if you can really see it here, like I chose this shirt specifically for a reason. You might not be able to see all these teeny tiny little laser cut ventilation holes. Those are for breathability. The fabrics that you choose, especially if you're going to be out there when it's hot, should be light in color or reflective in color. This is a reflective spot here and here. This is actually a men's shirt from my boutique that I'm wearing, but I like them when I need a little bit of sleeve instead of a tank top. And I love the ventilation holes, the laser cut ventilation holes here, the moisture wicking material that helps wick sweat away from you so that your body is efficiently cooling the way it's supposed to. And then of course the reflective spots. So you want light colors that are going to breathe well, especially in the heat, that are also going to moisture wick and wick sweat away from you so that your body can efficiently complete its cooling down process. A lot of people have always worn cotton, and cotton can be great for moisture wicking and all of that. However, cotton can also be heavy and can sometimes add to chafing issues. And that can be very uncomfortable for anybody, depending on where they're chafing, whether it's here, heart rate monitor. As it gets warmer, the risk of chafing increases. And cotton, I love it, but it's not always conducive to that particular situation. So reflective gear, we talked about that a little bit. I forgot to get them out, but I have some reflective shorts and some reflective pants that light up when the headlights hit them. I mean, they light up like a Christmas tree. In fact, I did a reel last week that you can take a look at that shows a couple of those. This kind of light here, like what's on my ring light that I use for these lives. As soon as any of the headlights hit the reflective material, like I said, that you see this kind of gets shiny, but this is only the beginning. That kind of reflective gear is available anywhere. I don't care what brand you buy. I care that you are safe. However, if you need help with some reflective gear, reach out to me. I can definitely help you out with that. But the most important thing is for you to be safe. Lights. Let's talk about lights. Even if my leggings have pockets, and almost all of my leggings do, I keep this armband for my phone for a reason. And when I am going to be out there after dark or before it gets light out, I do this so that I can turn the screen lock off on my phone so that my phone screen is on all the time. And I stick it in here and I strap it around my arm. And I now have a moving light so that every time my arm swings while I run, I have a moving light on my arm that tells people that I'm a person. Movement combined with light is extremely important for safety. I also have a running watch that lights up when I'm in workout mode. So now what happens, let me just put this on so I can show you. So now what happens is I have a light here and I have a light here. And as my arms are swinging, that is more likely to impress upon somebody that sees those lights as a person. So they may see those lights moving before they actually get close enough to me to put headlights on my reflective gear. They're going to see these lights moving first, more than likely, and they already know, even if it hasn't registered yet, they already know something or someone is there, because there are certain points of lights. Ankles are great too. I used to have slap bracelets that lit up that I put on my ankles. Certain points of light are ideal for just as you're moving, it kind of triggers to somebody else's brain. That's a person. Lights are super important. Now, in the summer in Florida, I don't always want to be adding a bunch of gear. So this is typically what I use, plus my reflective gear versus a vest or a jacket that has the LED lights in it, which you can also do. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I've just never wanted to put that extra layer on me because what I had going on was already enough for me. But there's lots of options out there. So lights are super important. Another thing that some people do, especially when they're walking a dog, this is a great opportunity for people that are walking at night. You've got a free hand. You're not running, so you're not necessarily worried about having to hang on to anything. A flashlight. Holding a flashlight that's on in this movement, again, that's moving light. It gets people's attention sometimes faster than anything else. So if you're walking the dog and you've got the leash in your left hand and you've got the light in your right hand, and that kind of helps light the way for you, but it also lets people know, especially if that's your traffic side, and you should be walking against traffic, not with it. That's another story and another rant for another day. But if you're on your traffic side, if you have a flashlight that you are swinging so that it's moving light, that is very, very good for safety. So again, as you retreat to the darker settings of the day, I'm struggling with the words today, y'all. As you retreat to the darker settings of the day after the sun goes down, before the sun comes up, safety becomes even more of an issue for some people. Because even though we know that bad things can happen during the day, we fear them more at night, and that's just the truth. Other things that you can do to stay safe, if you are one who runs with headphones, there's a lot of people that don't like to because they're concerned about safety. Good morning, Dawn. Because they're concerned about safety. I switched to bone conduction headphones several years ago. I've always worn over-the-ear headphones, not noise canceling, because I wanted to be able to hear around me, but I couldn't stand have anything on my head, right? So I always wore the behind the head, over-the-ear headphones. My earbuds hurt me. They really bother my ears, so that's never been an option. So with the over-the-ear headphones that actually sit on top, if they weren't noise canceling, I could still very well hear what was going on around me. And then I struggled to find a pair that was wireless, and I ended up with bone conduction a couple of years ago. And let me show you how these work. Bone conduction they don't actually sit inside your ear. They sit in front of your ear on essentially what I guess would be the joint where your jaw joint is, or just a little above that. They sound amazing. All the sound you could possibly want. They barely, I think one of my ears is a little lower than the other, so it barely touches the back of my ear. So it's not really sitting on the ear, if you will. It's kind of just, it barely touches my ear. Probably depends on how your ear sits. But it leaves all of this open so I can hear everything going on around me, which is especially important if I'm running after dark or in the morning before it gets light out. It's important to be able to hear what's going on around you all of the time, but especially in those hours, you really need to be able to listen and hear what's going on around you. So I still turn my music down a little bit more than I normally would, but I have full open ears to be able to hear. So I would definitely recommend that if you are going to run with headphones or earbuds of any kind, after dark or before it gets light out, if you're running with earbuds, leave one out so that you've got one ear that's totally open to whatever sounds are going on around you. Choose over the ear, ear covering headphones versus earbuds that are not noise canceling, that allow a little more ear in, or try the bone conduction, or go without it at all if you're able to. Bone conduction earphones. Yes, they're awesome. Thank you, Carla. And then of course, you can pick up pepper spray. For safety purposes, you can pick up pepper spray. Some of them are a combination of UV dye and spray. This is handy dandy. It fits in my hand. So when I'm running, I don't have to, it's big enough that I'm not squeezing too hard so that I'm not hurting my hand as I'm running. But that I can hold on to it, have it handy if I need it. And also, I like the flip top because it keeps anything from hitting that button if it's not time. But you can just slide your thumb under there very quickly and hit that button if you need to. So definitely consider these things because, like I said, one thing leads to another. Heat index leads to being out later in the evening and earlier in the morning, which leads to a whole new slew of safety concerns, right? So I hope you found this helpful. I apologize for the coughing and the hacking, but I didn't want to let you guys down and not show up. So here I am. Next week will be completely better, right? But I hope you found that helpful. If you did find that helpful, please share it. It's very, very important to me that we stay safe when we're out there, whatever time of day it is, but especially with, like I said, with summer being here and everything being so much warmer, it's important to really stay safe if you're moving into those darker or earlier hours of the morning or whatever. Remember, summer doesn't mean you have to exercise inside or stay inside. It just means you have to be smart about it, right? So stay hydrated, stay light and lit up, and stay safe, y'all. I hope you found that helpful. Again, if you did, please feel free to share. I'll drop that heat index chart into the comments for you and maybe go take a nap. All right. I love you all. Thanks so much for being here. Have a fabulous day. Bye. Be well.